Hello, my friends, and welcome to the Friday special. What's so special about it? It's my Saturday. It's my day off. So here I am, philosophizing, proselytizing, philosophizing. I had a couple of, let's just say a couple of topics on my mind, and I thought that I would spit them to the camera. I wanted to first thank today's sponsor. Today's video is brought to you by Life. Life. If you live it, you know it. Oh boy. Glad it's still early in the day. I haven't even got stoned yet. Today I'd like to talk a little bit about a couple of aspects of often literature and movies, which is the terms pathos and bathos, which I watched a video about something about bathos earlier, and it just got me thinking about it and kind of digging up some old research and ideas. And for those who aren't aware of the definitions, because bathos was a relatively new one to me, pathos is the way of conveying information to elicit an emotional response, for example. So pathos is drawing on the emotion of the audience by putting in a sad scene in a movie or a play. Whereas bathos is when you go from the sublime to the absurd, just like that. So it's like you're describing this wonderful, story about a princess who meets a prince, and then let's say they both fall and drown in a mud pit or something. I probably could think of a million better examples. It's bringing the absurd. It's bringing the absurd to something that is considered to be. What would be the proper term for it? I guess if I can't define it myself, I guess you could look up the definition yourself and get a better idea by seeing what others have come up with. But the point here is I thought about how bathos is very much the way that I've always kind of carried myself. Like I'll have a very serious conversation and then throw in something absurd. It's kind of like everything is absurd to me, and everything is ridiculous to me. Yet everything isn't so ridiculous to the point where I just don't care. I care immensely about people, about ideas and places I've gone and experiences I've had. I know that as a human, the only one who's really going to connect with my life is me. I'm the only one who can know where I'm coming from and where I'm going, where I want to go. But in that life, I've learned that sharing it with others is so much more rewarding, because you might be full of shit and not even know it. Which brings me to the philosophers of the past. And I was listening to a discussion about Kant, Immanuel Kant, and it was discussing his philosophy of basically how can we use rationality or reason, or what are the limits of reason, and what is reason based on. And it was broken down into the categories of the first one is time and space. You have to have time and space for any of these other categories to exist, because time allows things to change and space allows things to move or to grow. It's a very basic principle, and you could call it time, space. You could call it an illusion. I've discussed that in a previous video. It doesn't matter if all this is an illusion, because an illusion means that there's something real to base that illusion on. Because if all there is an illusion, then that is reality, because reality is what we know to be real. It's a complicated topic, but the point I wanted to make about the philosophers of old is that they had some amazing ideas that were continuously expounded on and rewritten and built upon, as the old term on the shoulders of giants goes, until we got a better view of the world around us. There's no one system that works for everyone, and no individual philosopher through history who has ever presented a true picture of what reason or reality is, or even how to live the best life. Although many have come close or tried, they don't work for quite everyone, and they never will. So there are no top philosophers. There are philosophers that work for certain people and ideas that work for certain people. But the one common thread that I see as being crucial is that philosophy should be fun. I feel the same way about religion and beliefs. which is why I think Zen Buddhism is so amazing, because it doesn't take anything too seriously. It throws the question back on the questioner. And in that way, you're forced to answer your own realities in a way. But we all do build on this view that we've learned from other people and other ideas, things we've read about, whether they're true or not. We do have a picture of how the world and the universe should operate as to what we think is normal. But I think that we take our own personal reason too seriously, because reason is learned. It's learned through our objective experience and our subjective experience. It's learned through our teachings, through our learnings, and through our misgivings and misunderstandings and assumptions. And because of this, reason is something that's different for each person. What is considered reasonable for one person is not going to work for another person. What's reasonable for a farmer is not going to work for a king, even though there are some basic ideas and underlying tenets that, yeah, we do agree on. You've got to eat, you've got to have companionship, you've got to have some sort of a purpose in life to flourish and thrive. But I think that one of the funniest things that's come out of philosophy and religion is this debate, for example, of free will versus determinism. I've pondered this discussion so much that it's as pointless of a discussion, in my opinion, as what came before the universe, or what happens after we all, the universe dissipates, or, this big question of what is the purpose of life. These are unanswerable questions. There is no guide to teach you exactly every factor about life that you want to learn. You have to figure these things out on your own. If we're caught up in worrying about whether the actions we take are our own, or if they're predetermined, I don't think it matters at all. And I've tried to understand the reasoning behind why people think it is important. I still don't believe it. I think it's a pointless debate and goes nowhere. And it's a waste of brain space. It's a waste of manpower to even process some of the philosophical ideas that have come up in the past. And that's why I think that modern philosophy, the modern philosophers out there, all of us, have a lot more to draw on than our ancient counterparts ever did. They could get really caught up in tunnel vision and think that their way was the only way. And if they're only exposed to a small village of people or the writings of a few dozen other writers rather than a few billion papers, then they're only going to get that limited worldview from the limited worldview of the people at the times. Just like the scientists of the day, we revere scientists of, the ancient times, but we also know they used a lot of unconventional methods that were really questionable that we would never use today. But we chalk it up to saying, well, they just didn't know better. That's the best they had at the time. That exactly the same goes for all the ideas we've had in the past, the philosophers of the past, the idea of kings and queens and, nations, and the way that we operate the entire world has all been based on this culmination of ideas from the past. And sometimes people have this notion that we can just break away from all that tradition and just start over. That's impossible. And I mean impossible. I don't think that humans, not because humans can't, but because humans don't want to. Traditions we have for a reason. We understand that values and morals, they come down the line from the knowledge that when we do wrong, we feel bad. Or that when we harm others, we feel guilty. Or if you treat others with respect, they'll treat you with respect. Very common things that we seem to have thrown out the window quite often. But in the end, I think we're asking the wrong questions. Sometimes we don't even know why we're asking for answers because we don't know the questions we're asking. Like I said the other day, what is the meaning of life? There is no meaning of life. You find meaning in life by creating it for yourself. And it's a painful, long path that you will have bad moments. Something I wanted to note the other day that I think is really important. I think I did bring it up, but I don't have bad days. I have bad moments where I drop something or get frustrated or something goes wrong and I'm instantly over it. And I thought about this deeply the other day. I don't hang on to things. And there were times when I would. Somebody could really piss me off and maybe I'd think about it all day. None of that shit bothers me anymore because I've trained my mind to ignore the things that don't benefit me or others the unconstructive parts of my life. And I think that that's ultimately the goal of philosophy, the goal of wisdom, the goal of reason, the goal of rationality is to live a good life. And so we're asking the wrong questions. Not how should people live or how should systems operate, but how should my system operate as a conduit for a better life for myself and those around me. So we're hung up on the old ideas, we're hung up on the old philosophers, and we don't even know what we really want today. We've romanticized religions that are thousands of years old as, this is the truth. We need no more. There are people who say this doesn't work for me. Others say this should work for you. And the same hubris comes from science as telling others, no, you should follow this and believe this. It's pretty absurd sometimes, but ultimately we have to step away from the ideas of the past, but utilize them at the same time. Not completely abandon those traditions and values. Incorporate those values and ask yourself why we have them. Make a better life for yourself and those around you. So, once again, thanks to today's sponsor, Life. And thanks for watching. If you want to contribute to the channel, you can visit me on Patreon. And if you want to leave a comment with your thoughts on life, I'd be glad to read it, and I'm sure others would as well. And I'll talk to you next time. Have a wonderful day. Peace. Bye now.